We are trying to learn about Mahatma Gandhian economics. They are very important because we live in India, and also they are more important now than ever because Pope Francis is promoting Mahatma Gandhian economics as ecological economics all over the world. So India becomes the role model to the rest of the world. So yesterday we were talking about Swadeshi principle, which means neighborliness, localism. In short, I summarized, Swadeshi means act locally, think globally. Act locally, think globally. So now the second principle is Swaraj. Swaraj. I think you should be experts in these three concepts in order to convince Indian people, our own local people. It is our own language. It's our own emotion. It is something of our own being. So in that sense, you take Laudato Si message and you put in the package of Swadeshi, Swaraj and Sarvodaya and you give to people. In that way, not only Christian people will accept, also other religious people also in India will value your mission. So that is why I'm going to concentrate maybe this hour on this Gandhian economics. Swaraj simply means self-rule. I rule myself. I discipline myself. I control myself. I don't allow other people to control me. So we are going back before 1947 when British people were ruling us. So Swaraj principle makes a sense that Mahatma Gandhi, we don't need British people to rule us. We can rule ourselves. Not only the president and the prime minister and the law enforcement can rule Indian people. Mahatma Gandhi rejected that. Each person becomes a ruler. He can rule pretty much himself. He doesn't need anybody to control him. That was a liberating idea in the last century. Mahatma Gandhi went still further. He divided Swaraj into two divisions, two parts. One is inner Swaraj, another one is outer Swaraj. What is inner Swaraj? It is how you control your emotions and your reasoning. Do you have a good control over your emotions and reasoning? In your inner Swaraj, if you have love and sympathy, kindness, empathy, that is going to reflect in outer Swaraj. How you feel inside, that is what you reflect outside. For example, If I ask, how is India? How is Tamil Nadu? If you say it's beautiful, there is peace and love, there is harmony, there is tolerance. It is so beautiful in India. People practice ahimsa, they live with truth force, life of renunciation. Wow! Beautiful India and beautiful Tamil Nadu. But it is not beautiful India, it's not beautiful Tamil Nadu, it's an illusion. Because people are beautiful and they are excellent. Because their inner swaraj, the inner dimension, is filled with good things. That is why they are able to create the outer world as a reflection of their inner self. On the other hand, if your inner swaraj is marked by greed, hate, violence, selfishness, what do you expect in the outer dimension? How would you expect India and Tamil Nadu reflect? If I ask you, how is India and Tamil Nadu, you are going to tell disgusting, bad. It's terrible. Indians are so bad, they are selfish, they are greedy, they are so violent. It is not India is violent, it's not Tamil Nadu is greedy. It is that an individual, one who lives here in the inner dimension, he is greedy, he is violent, he is selfish. That is how he can create the outer world also so bad. So how you feel inside, that is the reflection of the outside. Again, andam and pindam. Andathil illadhathu pindathil illai, pindathil illadhathu andathil illai. So it's a beautiful, beautiful philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. The inner Swaraj and the outer Swaraj. Pope Francis also writes in Laudato Si, somewhere in the 3rd chapter or 4th chapter, our external deserts are reflecting our inner deserts. That is what he writes. The external deserts are reflecting our inner deserts. In other words, humans, they don't live by morals anymore, no values. There is no bioethics. They don't go by ethical principles. So if there is no ethical principles, only violence and greed and selfishness will take over. So that is what is happening right now. So Pope Francis is also admitting the reality of inner Swaraj and outer Swaraj. And then Mahatma Gandhi goes still further. Self-rule means it is a kind of liberation. I liberate myself from the foreign rule, from the political rule, and also religious rule. Religions also rule us. They tell you how to behave, they tell you how to eat, they tell you how to sleep. So Mahatma Gandhi rejects even the religions. He says self-rule means I rule myself entirely. I don't need anybody. So it's an ultimate freedom if it is understood correctly. Don't misunderstand Mahatma Gandhi here. It has to be properly understood, otherwise it will lead you to misunderstanding. And you will turn against everything, even against religion, against politics, against our own constitution. I don't want you to do that. Don't get emotional. Don't act without knowing the essence of Swaraj. So you need to educate it, and you have to understand in a right perspective. Mahatma Gandhi says, liberation comes when you realize that consumption is bad. Today, people are addicted to consumption. In the first place, production, distribution, markets, high economic growth, GDP, gross domestic product, high rate of consumption. So if you are saying that my inner Swaraj is good, that means you have to reject all this. Self-rule means you reject. The government will not help you to reject. They will go on produce. Business as usual. Even today, business as usual. In today, we know that plastic is bad for the Mother Earth, for the environment. We know chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, DDT powder, all poisonous substances. We know that causes damage to soil, water, air and other parts of life. But yet we produce. The government doesn't stop. They allow the factories to produce all these evil substances. But ultimately that only consumers can reject. That tells you governments are unable to rule people and themselves. That's a clear and vivid proof that they can't rule. Only we can rule. Only self-rule can reject all these forms of production, distribution, markets and consumption. If you are able to say no to them, that means you are marked by genuine self-rule. So today you can reject so many forms of enforcements, like foreign education, like consumption of foreign food, foreign lifestyle, monoculture. There are so many enforcements on us. And in India, around the world, now we are slaves to some of the teachings of some rich people. There is no colonialism anymore, but there are people still, they colonize the individuals. In those days, only few countries were colonized. But today, 8 billion people are colonized by some form of technology or science or philosophy or multinational corporation agendas. So we are all controlled by today by computers. Who is controlling? Bill Gates. Bill Gates. Who is controlling other forms of businesses? Walmart, There are other multinational corporations. In India, we know very well Ambani brothers, Adani, everybody knows. So they are telling us how to live, in other words. You don't have your own mind. In the past, only religious leaders like Pope, they were telling about 1.6 billion people, they obey in faith. But today, the biggest religion is science and technology. Christianity has only 1.6 to 2 billion people, including Protestants. Islam, 1.6 billion. Hindus, 1 billion. Buddhist, 500 million. And so on and so forth. But today, almost 8 billion people belong to one religion called science and technology. Pope Francis calls it technocracy. In the 3rd chapter of Laudato Si, technocracy. That is the new religion, in which we are all controlled. There is no Swaraj. Swaraj is wiped out in all its forms. It was somewhere just showing its roots, but now all the roots are pulled out. No Swaraj. We are controlled by science and technology, cell phones, computers, media, internet, porn, Amazon. So what do you expect? There is no Swaraj. So today, this education is absolutely necessary. Only individual has the power to stop the onslaught of technology and science, consumption, production, distribution, and media, religions, politics, etc., etc., etc. So let me read what Mahatma Gandhi wrote in 1908, almost 118 years ago. He wrote in his book, Swadeshi. Mahatma Gandhi writes as follows: Swaraj means self-rule. Gandhi gave it the content of an integral revolution that encompasses all spheres of life. That is, at the individual level, Swaraj is vitally connected with the capacity for dispassionate self-assessment, ceaseless self-purification, and growing self-reliance. See, nice words. Actually, Swaraj means, assessing oneself in a right perspective. We call it examination of conscience in Christianity. With the honesty and truthfulness, you assess yourself, self-assessment. Ceaseless self-purification. If your inner Swaraj is marked by greed and violence, remove them. Fill it with love and hope and empathy. That is ceaseless self-purification. And growing self-reliance. You rely on yourself. Don't rely on other institutions. Mostly we expect that other people will save us, like politics and religions. But why don't you rely on yourself? You have everything to live and survive. You come alone. You die alone. Why can't you live alone? I'm just talking to you a little bit of philosophy here. You came to the world alone. Nobody came with you. And you are going to die also alone. Then why can't people leave us alone? That is self-rule. That is Swaraj. Most of us, we don't know how to live individually. Today we have to run a cell phone, computer. Unfortunately, a decade ago, we were at least relying on each other, but that is no more. We rely on electronic screens. All our relationships, these electronic screens have replaced. There are no uncles and aunts and nieces and nephews. Our uncle is computer. Our aunt is cell phone. All the relations are electronic screens, unfortunately. But you yourself enough. You have got everything inside. I told you yesterday, all the resources are available. You don't need any resources from outside. Mahatma Gandhi continues to write, economically, Swaraj means full economic freedom for the toiling millions. And in its fullest sense, Swaraj is much more than freedom from all restraints. It is self-rule, self-restraint, and can be equated with moksha or salvation. Hey, when you liberate yourself from consumption, from political agendas, from religious enforcements, from high economic growth, from other forms of slavery, I think you experience moksha or salvation. Especially, you think when we have media, we have entertainment. No, media can take you to hell sometimes. But when you free yourself from media, then you have time to reflect, to relax, to meditate. That is moksha and salvation. You need to educate yourself more on Swaraj. So after the class, please type the word Swaraj in the internet and look for more resources. Next slide.